Hello everyone and welcome to Good Nightmare, a podcast where we talk about everything a little bit weird and kind of speculative. Today's case covers that of a haunting, one which seems far-fetched in some senses, but one that you kind of want to believe in just because it's so damn interesting. Make sure you stay tuned to the end of the episode where I'll have a promo for another podcast that I highly recommend. If you're a fan of horror, you've definitely heard of or watched The Blair Witch Project. Today's episode looks at the legend that inspired this film and many others, the case of the Bell Witch haunting. Stay tuned until the end where I'll include some interesting trivia about the Blair Witch Project. The Bell Witch haunting is a notable legend originating in Southern America in the 1800s. John Bell Sr. and his family claim to have been haunted by a terrifying and very active entity between 1817 and 1821. Not quite a poltergeist, not quite a ghost. This entity could speak, shapeshift, and affect the physical environment around it. It was also said to possess superhuman speed, allowing it to travel long distances in a very short time, an example of which you'll hear later on in the story. The first reports of the haunting were from 1817, where John Bell Sr. claimed to have witnessed an entity that resembled a large dog. Not an unusual sighting, one would think, except that when Bell attempted to shoot at the dog, it simply disappeared. John wasn't the only one to witness this disappearing dog. An enslaved servant of the Bell family, named Dean, also reported that he had seen this unusual dog on multiple occasions when he would travel to visit his wife. Normally, you wouldn't consider a dog to be such an odd sighting, like I said, so we can only assume that there was something particularly strange or ominous about this particular being. Black dogs in lore are said to represent a demonic entity. Often they're said to be shapeshifters, in league with the devil. They may be described as ghosts or even hellhounds, and their appearance is often an omen of death. Bell's son Drew also claimed to have seen an extraordinary and large bird perched on a fence which flew away upon being approached. Birds are generally associated with endurance, freedom, talismans for wary travellers, or even messengers to the gods. The opposite end of the spectrum to the black dog. It seems the haunting began on the outskirts of the property, before moving forward and inside of the house, and it certainly wasn't limited to just one person. The haunting became more intense over time as the entity gained strength and energy. The Bell family often reported hearing sounds of fighting dogs, chains being dragged along the floors, and knocking on the walls of the home throughout the night. Bed sheets would be pulled away from Bell's sleeping children, and the children themselves would be dragged from their beds. Betsy, Bell's daughter, was especially targeted by the entity. She would be pinched, scratched, and slapped, as well as being stuck with pins. After dealing with these occurrences within the family for some time, John Bell confided in his friend James Johnston. Johnston came to stay in the Bell home to experience the haunting for himself. Upon spending the night, Johnston exclaimed to Bell that the home was indeed haunted by a spirit like those of the Bible. It was confirmed that this was indeed an evil and mischievous entity. The spirit was willing to communicate with the family, giving several reasons for its presence and several stories of its origin. It claimed to be a spirit that had been at rest but that had since been disturbed. It also appeared to be clairvoyant, able to glean and report information about families from surrounding homes back to the Bells. John Bell doubted the spirit's abilities, however, and asked it to tell him something no one outside of his family would know. He asked what his grandmother would say to the slaves when they'd done something wrong. Not only did the spirit answer correctly, it responded in the same Dutch accent that Bell's grandmother had. This solidified his belief. The Bell Witch, as it came to be known, was capable of great and disturbing feats. It was once reported to have recited 2 sermons that were taking place simultaneously 13 miles away and seemed to enjoy religious discussions. This theme of religion being a focus in haunting cases is not uncommon. It shows up again and again in cases of demonic possession and sinister hauntings. One skeptic visited the Bell home, but soon changed their mind about what they had thought to be a ruse. While in the Bell house, the spirit relayed messages of the man's family, speaking in an English accent. The man later heard from his family, who were living in England at the time. They told him that they too had been visited by the spirit on the same night that he had, giving credit to the theory that this spirit could either travel at speed or could be in 2 places at once. In an attempt to reason with the spirit, the family asked what they could do to make it leave. The spirit claimed that if Betsy, John's daughter, who was heavily affected by the haunting, were to marry a man named Joshua Gardner, the spirit would leave. There were rumours, of course, that Betsy could be the one behind all of this. It was even suggested that she'd learned ventriloquism and was attempting to encourage Joshua to marry her through the will of the spirit. Whether or not this is true, it didn't work. The two were not to be wed, and the spirit died away shortly after this was decided. If you're like me, you'll be finding it hard to believe that this was anything more than a disturbing prank, or a kind of shared hysteria among the family. Many others are also skeptical, and have been throughout the centuries. Though often skeptics may find themselves at the mercy of the spirit. A troop of soldiers, for example, had been visiting the cave on the property which is now a popular tourist spot. One of the soldiers sat down to rest on a rock outside of the famous cave and exclaimed that they did not believe the haunting was real. It was at that very moment that he felt phantom arms wrap around his chest and pull him backwards. To this day, people still visit the area in hopes of experiencing the haunting for themselves, or perhaps just out of curiosity. The tale of the Bell Witch has inspired 5 films since 1999, when the Blair Witch Project aired. While the Blair Witch Project is similar to the tale of the Bell Witch, the legend behind the movie was entirely fiction. The cast, however, were not aware of that at the time of filming. They were led to believe that the haunting and mysterious deaths in the area that they were exploring were real. The film's audience also believed the legend. Heather Donahue's mother actually received sympathy cards from strangers who believed that her daughter had died during filming. She was listed as missing on the IMDb page for the film. Funnily enough, when taking on the role, Heather had asked the director if he intended to make a snuff film. If you're unsure what a snuff film is, it's a film in which a victim's death or murder is actually recorded for entertainment. These films are then said to be sold on the black market or the dark web. There may be room for an episode about these somewhere on Good Nightmare in the future. As a note on what a strange and disturbing experience the filming of this movie was, Heather actually brought a knife to sleep with to keep herself safe when sharing a tent with the 2 men in the film. Honestly, I think I would have done the same. To make the found footage film more believable, and to add tension, the actors were given less and less food to eat each day over the 8 days of filming, leaving them irritable and less energetic. The 3 leads stayed in character even while not filming. They would only break character altogether, never one at a time, and would use their safe word, taco. The filming was so intense that even after the director had called cut on the final scene, Heather continued hyperventilating and crying from the experience. Honestly, who can blame her? It took me a long time to get around to watching this movie, as when it came out I was quite young and I was one of the people who believed that it was real, that these actors had gone missing after it was finished filming, and that the Blair Witch truly did exist. Then again, I also took years to watch The Ring because of that whole 7 days thing. Call me superstitious, but I'm not going to be taken out by a haunted film or a haunted anything. Tweet me at goodnightmare_s on Twitter and let me know what film scared the living shit out of you when you were younger. Or if there are any films that still spook you to this day. Wolf Creek is still one that's hard to watch for me, especially the scene with the fingers. If you've seen it, you'll know exactly which scene I mean. You can catch me on social media, on Twitter and Instagram at goodnightmare_s, or by email at goodnightmare_s@outlook.com. If you're an indie podcaster, feel free to contact me for a promo swap. I always play promos from other podcasts that I support at the end of my shows. If you have any topic suggestions or you'd just like to chat, feel free to hit me up as well. I'm always happy to talk about pretty much anything. Thank you again so much for listening. Even though this will come out about a week after it happened, you guys helped me reach 20,000 downloads today. And I am speechless. For once. Thank you all from the bottom of my heart. This is something that I would do whether I had listeners or not, but having you guys along for the ride, it just makes it so much more fulfilling and so much more special. I have some exciting plans for the podcast, so make sure you subscribe and keep an eye out. Until next time, sweet dreams.
Hi guys, my name's Leanie.
And my name's Bunny.
We like chatty, occasionally funny British ladies talking about horror, true crime, and all things spooky. Could I suggest our podcast?
We round up every episode with a creepy and crappy pasta story, so you shouldn't be too bummed out by the time you finish.
You can find us on all the very best podcasting apps, hopefully.
And you can catch us on Twitter, we're @TalkSpooky. Hope to catch you soon. Love ya!
And I think that you're alright.